Hello everybody and welcome back to the spooky side of the Pierce clan. If you are watching this video, that means that once again I am not feeling well and I am not able to record a video this week. But you're in luck because I'm making a vlog video in which I will be talking to you about weird things that have happened in my life. Would you like to hear about my experiences volunteering at the Veterans Hospital? Wow, what? You did that? Yeah, I did that in high school and kind of a little bit in college because I'm that cool. What? So giving. So when I was in high school, I was looking for opportunities to volunteer. My dad and I both are war buffs, and that's kind of how we bonded in my late teens. And so I thought it would be really cool to work at the Veterans Hospital because, I mean, my entire family are veterans, so give back, right? Because there was no way I was going to join the military. Fun fact, I did try to join the military, and I was immediately disqualified because of my physical health. Go figure. Who'd have thought? Anywho, so I started volunteering on Saturdays where we would play bingo at the nursing home in the hospital. And we had veterans from everywhere from World War II all the way up to Vietnam. And these men and their wives were so funny. So I would show up, we would get the guys from their rooms, we would put them up to the table, and I would pass out bingo cards, and we would pass out chips and everything. They were so particular about which card they got and how many chips of each color, because if I did it wrong or I gave them a different card, then they would lose. They were very superstitious about their bingo. It was, you did not mess with their bingo. And so they would play, and if they won, sometimes they would, again, geez, my goodness. And if they won, sometimes they would get like $3 in quarters, or sometimes they'd bring in like the gold dollars if anybody remembers those. I don't think they even make those anymore, at least not in circulation. Sometimes we would have people who would donate things that they could win as prizes. There was this really, really cool quilt that someone made that was patchwork and looked like an eagle with the American flag in the background, and it was amazing, and I was super jealous. But anyway, so we would sit there, and some of the guys either couldn't hear or weren't able to see the numbers or whatever, or they just didn't want to play all by themselves. So we would sit next to them and we would, play the chips for them or with them. We'd sit there and we'd all talk, and there was one week where I was sitting with this gentleman. He was a World War II vet. I loved him so much. Oh my gosh, he was hilarious. But I sat next to him for the whole thing. Sometimes we would bounce around, all of us, and trade back and forth. And I sat with him the whole time because he wanted me to sit there because he won almost every round as long as I was sitting there. And he was like, "You gotta break me out of here and take me to the boat," which is where we go to gamble around here. And so he was like, "Yeah, you gotta take me to the boat. Let's go." It's like, "Okay, sir. I don't think I can. I'm 17. I'm not allowed to gamble." But it was really fun. He was really sweet. And then there was another gentleman and his wife, and he would always sit there. And there's a bit in The Simpsons where the lady calls out Lisa. It's Lisa. She calls out the bingo number, and Jasper Beardsley goes, "You sunk my battleship," and everyone would laugh. And then she'd call out another number, and he'd be like, "You sunk my battleship," and they'd laugh like it was the first time they heard it. That was this guy. He would make like the same jokes all the time. He would sometimes call out bingo on the first number, just every other game. It was hilarious. Everybody thought he was super funny. His wife, however, was so embarrassed every time he would do this. They were the cutest little thing. He would always give her half of his dessert because everybody got a dessert. So she'd have her dessert and half of his. And it's like, Goals, goals. If you don't have a man or a woman that gives you half of their dessert. It was really sweet. These were all really great people to meet and get to know. It was awesome, and I loved spending time with them. I learned so much. I learned that whole thing about your tattoos aren't gonna look good when you're older is a lie because oh my gosh, there there was one gentleman who had a pinup on his arm. Um, that was his wife. Before they got married, he got it before he went to war. Um, I don't think he was old enough. I don't even know if he was old enough to go to war, but that happened a lot. And so he had a pinup of his girlfriend at the time, who ended up being his wife, and his wife had passed since. And he showed me his tattoo, and he's like, "Oh, there she is. It's how I remember her." And I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet." And he's like, "Yeah, she did not age that well." I was like, "Okay." He was like, "Yeah, she hated when I would say that, but I said it anyways." I was like, "Okay, sir, I don't know what you expect to get out of this conversation." But he loved talking about her, and it was very sweet. But I guess that's not what she looked like when she died, and he was not very okay with saying that. But they were great. I highly recommend if you have an opportunity to go speak to veterans. They are very amazing people. They have been through a lot, and they definitely deserve a visit or two. Please go check on on our war veterans, especially the older ones. I don't think we have any World War II veterans at our VA hospital here anymore. I think they all passed away, but yeah, I'm missing out on opportunities to hear their stories. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish with a promise that I made to one of the gentlemen at the hospital. I'm gonna try to get through this as quick as I can, but we'll see. Mr. Weinberg was a gentleman who lived at the VA in the nursing home. I was doing an assignment for school. We had to write an essay on something in history that we had covered as a topic. I wanted to do World War II, but you could only do World War II if you had an interview from an actual veteran. So I had worked at the VA for over a year then, so I was like, "Hey, is there anyone who would be willing to talk to me?" And they found me Mr. Weinberg. His wife had recently passed, and his children lived far away, so they were not able to visit him. And so he said that he would absolutely sit and talk to me as long as I made a promise to remember his story and share it. So this is me remembering his story because I remember. I remember. And I'm going to share it with you guys. So when the war started, I think he was already like planning on enlisting before the war started, and he wanted to be a pilot. It was not called the Air Force then. The Air Force was not its own thing. It was a branch of the Army. And so he enlisted in the Army and he wanted to be a pilot. He went through boot camp and then they gave him his assignment and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to be a pilot. It's going to be great." He was assigned as a navigator. And he's like, "I don't want to be a navigator. I'm going to be a pilot." So he went to his CO's office and he knocked on the door and the CO says, "Yeah, come in." He's like, and he walks in, salutes. Permission to speak, sir." He goes, "No, go out, do it again." He's like, "All right." So he leaves, knocks on the door, enter. He goes in, salutes. "Permission to speak, sir." He goes, "No, you do that again." And he's like, "I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know what I'm doing wrong." So he walks out, knocks on the door, goes back in, salutes, says, "Permission to speak, sir." And the CO goes, "Expletives? Boy, this is the damn Army, not the Boy Scouts. You salute me correctly." Because he had been using the Boy Scout salute. And he was mortified. And he's like, "Permission to speak." And he's like, "Go ahead." He's like, "Sir, I've been assigned to be a navigator. I'd like to be a pilot." And he, "Permission denied. Navigator, leave." And so that's how he ended up being a navigator for the rest of his career. And he was so embarrassed. But there were a few interesting things that he did. He told me about how he learned to navigate, all the different tests that they had to go through in order to become navigators. He explained to me how they learned to navigate with no nav system, like be able to use the stars. He's like, you could be flying over the desert and there would be nothing except for the night sky, and you'd have to figure out where you're going. He's like, you could have nothing and it would be stormy and you'd have to know where to go. And that was his job. It was his job to know where they were and where they were going. So he said that he's very grateful that he still wishes he was a pilot, but he's still grateful that he had that opportunity. He had one experience where he was in France at the time, I believe, and he was approached by a man who turned out to be a friend from high school that he knew. And he was so excited. He was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen anybody from even my home state. This is great. I know who you are. Like, we went to the same high school, like, super small world, right? They went out on mission, and his friend did not come back. His plane was shot down, and they did not survive the crash. And this severely tore him up emotionally. He said that he wanted to go home after that because that was, he said he'd seen many men die, but never anybody that he like knew from childhood like that. And that was really hard for him. So he got leave. He went back to England. Um, he got to spend some time there, and then he had to go back. He didn't have enough points to go home because if you didn't know, you gained points while you were at war, and if you had enough points, you could go home. Otherwise, you would be sent back out into action. And he didn't have enough to go home, so he had to keep going. It wasn't long after that that he was, and this is the thing that made me never ever ever want to forget him. He was flying over Germany, and their plane was hit. Pilot died, and plane was crashing, and he had to quickly calculate how high up they were, and he didn't have a parachute. I don't remember why, but he didn't have a parachute, so he had to jump from the plane, hold his breath until he reached breathable air, and then hit the ground. And he survived, and he was fine, except that he was then immediately captured and taken prisoner of war. And you'd think that that would be terrifying enough, but he was Jewish. And it says so on your dog tag. It had a little H for Hebrew. And they were told if you were ever taken prisoner to never speak to anybody because they would put men in the cells to pose as American prisoners just to get information out of them. So he didn't speak to anybody while he was there, which in itself was terrifying. But then he was talking to one of the German officers who looked at his dog tag, saw his name was Weinberg, and was like, Weinberg, why did you not come? This is a weird accent. I'm so sorry. Why didn't you not come to mother country? And he said, because I'm an American, sir. Because, you know, German descendants and everything were called back to Germany before the war started. And he's like, no, I'm an American. And they knew he was Jewish. And they're like, oh, so you don't eat certain types of food, right? And he's like, so they fed him only food he could not eat that wasn't kosher. And it was crappy food anyways. And it was like rotten and disgusting and wet, gross. So he lost a lot of weight. He lost a lot of himself. He didn't speak to anybody the whole time he was there. He was held at one of the worst prisoner of war camps in the entire world, Second World War. And towards the end of the war, when Germany was starting to lose, they started taking prisoners out into trucks, and then they'd stop in the middle of nowhere, say, okay, you gotta run and go, you're free, just get out of here. And then they would shoot them all down. And he was scheduled to be on the next bus out. And then they were liberated by General Patton. And he got to shake Patton's hand on his way out. And he sang Patton's praises. If you don't know anything about Patton, he's one of the most well-known generals in all the American troops. You just Google him and you'll find everything. But yeah, he got to shake Patton's hand on his way out, and he went home. His family didn't even know he was missing because they didn't have dog tags. They thought that he was dead, and he went home. And that was it. That was the end of the war. And he just had to acclimate and be a regular person again. But his wife, he got a Purple Heart. He got a bunch of awards for his service, and his wife put it in a shadow box for him for their anniversary before she died. It was very sweet and very beautiful. But he got to talk to me about that, and I feel very, very lucky to have been able to have that experience, to talk to him and to learn more about his experiences. So I would highly encourage anybody who has an opportunity to speak to a family member or just go to the local VA or nursing home and be like, hey, is there anybody who just wants to talk? Because they just want to talk. Just let them talk. Come on. But that's all I got for you guys on this one. That's the only thing I can think of. Yeah, no, I mean, it was a really great experience, and may he rest in peace. He's with his wife, and that is a beautiful thing. Thank you guys so much for watching me ramble on about, working at the VA hospital. It was a great experience that I got to have as a teenager. I'm really grateful for it. And I don't know what else to say. So if you liked this video, if you want to see more, hopefully we have more scary games coming for you. Coming for you. They're coming for you. Hopefully we have more scary games coming for you soon. Hopefully I'll be feeling better. And until the next video, I love you all very much. I pinky promise that I will be there soon. Bye.